Alright, let's continue that series on creating mountains and canyons, river canyon series. But let's kind of step out of the theory and into the practical. And this is sort of an illustration of where I might take that. I'm looking at this picture. This is in some sort of a job board, a job description for a technical trainer. And I'm looking at this image and I said, oh, how can we do something like this type of image? A balloon or two in the foreground or not too far away, and kind of a misty, hazy sky. Maybe we could do better than that. But definitely some mountains with some snow, and maybe a sea of fog or clouds down here below as well. So let's see if we can kind of create something similar to that. One thing we'll need is obviously some sort of a hot air balloon. You can create that yourself. You can perhaps find one in your 3D program, or you can go look on some of the stock photography items. There are plenty of free online stock photography items too. You've probably heard of iStock Photo and that sort of things. Dreamstime is another one I like. There is also the Morguefile. Morguefile is a free one and tied with Dreamstime, I believe, where you have more of the better quality commercial ones. So I'm going to go to Dreamstime and just see if we can find something there that might suit our needs. I'm going to search for hot air balloon. As you remember, as you see, it remembers I did that last time. And here are some hot air balloons. And I'm not going to search too long. There is one here that's pretty neat. It's got the blue background. It has the logo in it too, of course. And we do have, we can't use this commercially. So let's make sure we give them credit or buy them, license this for proper use. I'm going to do the unthinkable here and to ignore my own recommendation and see if I can. Let's just grab this one here. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can copy this image and switch over to Howler and take it perhaps into the brush from the clipboard and paste from clipboard. So it's now in my brush. I can enable the preview. There it is. It's not fully opaque yet. Let's give it fuller opacity there and see if I stamp it down. Turn off the preview, and actually let me store this brush too. You never know, I might change my mind and get back to that. Minimize it. There it is. So there's a little placeholder, a copy of that. What I'll do now is to simply see if I can isolate this by selection. It's not going to be a perfect, the focus of this tutorial is not to get the perfect hot air balloon extracted from the background sky. I just want to get something close enough that I can say, yeah, I can use that. So one thing I'll do first is I'll crop the image a little bit. I'll say pick a smaller portion as a custom brush, namely this part here, something like this. That would have picked it up as a custom brush, and I can store that one as well. So that way I don't have too much of the other material around it. Perhaps I actually want to really crop in the image to that, so I'm going to use the rectangle to alpha. I'm going to make sure I have the selection overlay alpha. That one will show a little bit better when I do have my selection done, where it is, because sometimes it's difficult to see the marching ants. Actually here everything works pretty well. Use the control key, press and hold the control key, and you can move this selection around. That's how you shift around the current selection mask in the alpha channel. Alright, so I'm going to crop to that selection there, crop to selection. Right, and so this image, I might want to store that. Keep working with those store items, store brush, store image, store selection, store animation, all of these things that you can store. So one thing I'd like to do is isolate the blue, light blue background color, and then invert it so I have the foreground, which is the elephant, the hot air balloon. Why do I think of elephants? Let's go select by lights, or perhaps by color key. That'll be better. I select by this and select the hue. Perhaps I give it something like a little bit. Got to make sure I have. Let's see the hue difference. That's a good selection, I think, here. Yeah, so get some of the blue. You know what? Maybe the magic wand also might work. Let's see. Try that. There's the turkey baster. Where's the magic wand? There it is. Right, it's selected. There you go. So maybe if I use the adjust the tolerance a little bit here, there is some of the information I want. So let's go use the shift key and perhaps get closer to some of the items I want there. Okay, so that will probably be just fine. Maybe one more selection with anti-aliasing enabled, so it kind of goes into it. You could also adjust the selection later on. Let's invert it now. Let's go select, let's store it first. Also, that's certainly a good step to not forget. And then let's go to inverting it. Actually, we can do that right here in the stored copy. Invert it and then replace it, so now we have the selection on the inside. There's still a little bit noise here or there. We might want to paint over that. I'm using the shift and the control key to move around with the left button or zoom in and out with the right button, while shift and control key is down. And so one thing you can do is if you see some areas where we still have some marching ants, or we have some areas that are selected that should not, well, sometimes it actually belongs to part of the balloon. Like you might have this rope coming down here, and maybe there's something hanging from it that causes this pixel area here to still be selected. But it could quite typically be maybe a bird that flew in the background, or an airplane, or something else that was just keeping those pixels at a similar color, and the selection says, no, I don't want to grab that. So there is some parts here that we want to paint away. Use the paintbrush, right click on that and select paint on alpha with a hard brush, maybe smaller though. Let's make it a little bit smaller, and then see if you can paint up. That's way too big still. Undo, right, and then right click and use the right button to wash it away. Here, for instance, in this area, and then some of that is of course because it's an alpha, it's a JPEG image, so there is some noise to that along the edges, right, when you magnify it this much. So that's something you don't need to worry about. But in the alpha channel we have some color changes right here. Let's go in here and grab it away. There you go. That will make the alpha selection go away. There's possibly some selection here at the bottom. You see this marching ants noise or activity. Right button again to grab that away. I don't know if it's really needed. Looks like it might be just noise along it here. Right button along the edge on this side if you see any suspicious marching ants that might not need to be there. That is something you'll see more likely if you did use during the magic wand, if you did use the anti-alias mode. Alright, so I'm gonna go get the alpha, keep a safe copy here. So now we have essentially the selection mask. We might want to tighten it a little bit more. Sometimes just 1 pixel to the inside. So shrink alpha a little bit by 1. And then blur alpha, perhaps more importantly. Just blur that selection mask a little bit so it's not too crisp or too sudden. And you have a little bit of a fuzziness to that selection. That's really something you want to do with large images. When you have small images like this, it's going to be so sensitive to any missed pixel or selected pixel. You got to be careful there. But so keep that in mind. And then so next thing we'll do is we'll pick this up as a custom brush and we'll store it. Store it. And so now we have our hot air balloon. And of course from here we can work on other things like we can change the appearance by rotating the hue, give it a different saturation, light brightness, all sorts of changes in appearance that you can give, including the size and the rotation. So that'll be our brush that we can use. And that's how we'll place the hot air balloon in different places, right? You can paint with that. So now if we go and store or create a new image, something like this, there you go, you can put that hot air balloon in different places. And that'll be the idea, is that we can now focus again on our landscape. So let's go and create the second part of that. We had something a little bit wider. Let's make it 1200 pixels wide and not quite that tall, maybe 600. Notice you don't need to have the final dimensions. It's always better to have more and then eventually crop down to what you really need. So maybe we'll give it 800. And so we have a fairly decent size on that image. Let's go and use our traditional plasma noise under the render filters, plasma noise. And actually it would be nice to have a bit of a valley in the foreground. So remember the technique, we use the linear gradient tool, but not on the inside. We'll kind of come in from the outside, halfway out, something like this, and go halfway in. And then that way, and maybe even with a bit of an angle. And so the river will mostly go along the bottom edge here. Then it's a matter of using that, let's see, zoom in a little bit. It's a matter then at that point of using the plasma noise, render the plasma noise, but in a mode which will show that difference with the difference mode here. And in the difference mode, maybe adjust the size a little bit. So now you see the canyon here at the bottom left. Just click this a few times on the same until you have kind of an area that where you like it. Maybe something that kind of curves in and comes back out. Let's see if we can. I think I had one just earlier. There, that'll be interesting. We'll actually probably see down this canyon as well. So let's keep that one. Let's store this image. That's always a good thing to have stored. And so now at this point we should be able to simply go and enter the 3D designer to turn this into a landscape. Transform 3D designer, and just in a couple of steps, first we'll adjust the height, smooth it a little bit, open up, or let's see, no, first we have ray traced shadows, soft shadows that is. Let's adjust, make the light source come down low, far away though on the zenith, adjust the brightness a little bit, the light range, and then have the light come in from over there in the far left. We need some misty whitish color for the background, a little bit blue but not a lot really, mostly white, something like that. And then we can move back a little bit and scale it in both directions, make it a little bit bigger. Adjust perhaps, we don't need this much perspective, we can have it something like this, and adjust the rotation and rotate a little bit this way as well, and then enable the fog. Right, so here we go, perhaps a little bit more like this. We need to add a little bit more ambient lightness, there you go. Enable the fog, so that's a distant fog level, there you go, something like this. And now it's time to get some erosion, so click on erosion over here and add some erosion to that, add some sediments, add some coloring of the sediments or texture first based on elevation and slope, adjust the snow cap level, a little bit of greens we still need, adjust these parameters to see if you like the results there better. Something like, okay, so we want to still see the rocks as well. Something like this. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to the default. I think 12 or 11 or so was there. But then also adjust the snow cap. There you go. Something like this. Color the sediments. And so now you have control of the elevation. Let's get also some ground fog going here. And with the ground fog we have that same misty color coming up from the lower valleys. And so we're getting really close here. We can have the snow caps look a little bit more like wet snow, more reflective, by adding a very small hardness and high specularity on the reflection or the lighting effect. Then we can also add a little bit on this one, and then on the lighting we can also ambient occlusion in additive mode, right? The ambient occlusion in additive mode will add that. We need to get good anti-aliasing, make it go to the max, and we're pretty much done. Let's go see if we can perhaps adjust a little bit more on that perspective. I want much of the mountains to show, but I want it to also kind of be not too crisp, a little bit misty haze. Oh, one more thing we can do is add some clouds. I like these here, the puffies. So now what I'm going to do is reduce those in intensity and then bring them to the background a little bit. Not this way, but that way. I want them to be kind of behind the main mountain range. Some of them will have passed But yeah, I want something like this here in this area to appear like mountains in the back. There you go. Let's see if we have some more on the left. That will be good. And maybe reduce the specular brightness here. Yeah, something like that. So now at this point we can just zoom in a little bit to make ourselves more comfortable as we zoom in. Something like that. Oh, I love it. Something like this. There you go. So I think it's time for a final render. Maybe tilt it a little bit more. Right, let's go back to that picture we saw earlier. Where was it? Here. Yeah, we don't really see a whole lot of the mountains or on top of the valley, just mostly from the side. So let's go and go back to this one here. So we can probably tilt it a little bit more, like so. There you go. And then as we bring it down with the y-axis, there. Now we can even bring the mountains, the clouds down a little bit more. And perhaps prevent them from being too bright. There you go. Ah, beautiful. Too much brightness there. Okay, there you go. So we got a little bit of cloudiness, you get a little bit of fog, a little bit of everything here. Okay, and we might even want to bring it down even lower, or that will be part of what we crop at the end, right, once you need that particular final shot. Alright, so let's go and render that. This is our final render for the mountain scene. And then the next thing we'll do is, of course, save that to a file and store it. And there we go, so that's done. Let's see it at full size, 100%, there you go. And of course it's bigger than what we really need for our website. Maybe we need it just 640 by 200 pixels high or something like that. So we'll crop to that. But before we do that, let's get our balloon, this one here. Perhaps let's go back to the original coloring or something close enough. A little bit more. Now we need to work a little bit on the saturation and the lightness. So the saturation is what's going to make it look too close or too far away. We want to have it a little bit saturated if they're farther away, or desaturated rather, and also the lightness kind of faded into the bright sky we have back there. So now if we enable the preview, make sure we are on the brush tool, enable the preview here, we can see that. And we can make it go a little bit bigger and have one balloon right here. And so we'll put one up here, and then we'll put another one much smaller, and that one will be, actually this one here should be the one with higher saturation. So let me undo that. Actually I'll do the one that's far away first. So undo this and then do the one that's farther away, just in case we decide there's a bigger one that's partly overlapping. So we'll do the smaller one around here. Less saturation, right? We have three components here. We have hue, saturation, and value. Decide if we want to give it a slightly different color too. There you go, why not? And then we have hue, saturation, and value, and something like, you know, don't make it too bright. There you go. So we'll have perhaps one around here. Oh, but you know what the problem? Look at the lighting. The light source on the sun is coming from the left, but the lighting on the balloon is on the wrong side. We need to switch this. Let's go to brush, flip it horizontal. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, now we have the impression like it's being lit by the sun the same way. Alright, so let's say where we want to put this one, about here. Let's put it here. Oop, come on. There you go. And then we have a different balloon, different color. Oop, bigger also, but hue here, different color. Let's get something with lots of red. Red will make it look like it's closer. Our eye is sensitive to red, and saturate it a little bit more. There you go, and make it a little bit brighter. All of these things will work nicely towards making it look like it's closer. Even bigger, let's make it that big. There you go. And then of course have it flipped again. Brush, flip, vertical, no, excuse me, horizontal. There it is. And now we have the sun, right, the sun lighting Perfect. All right, so now we have our main shot here. Now we need to just crop to that for the final. Let's go store this one too and get ready to crop. So we have the crop tool, for instance. What that does is it resizes. Oh, let me disable the preview on the brush. The crop tool will resize the image so you see the entire image, and then you can decide what part of that you really want to keep. Right? Maybe you don't need the whole balloon here, maybe you want just part of it. And then it's time to thank Dreamstime for giving us a beautiful hot air balloon to incorporate into our image. There is one more thing we could do. Let's do that after the crop, because we're really never done with this, are we? Let's do something like this shot here. Right click and crop to that. Make sure you check the dimensions. You don't want to leave it in odd numbers. That happens sometimes. There the height is 445. Let's resize that to resample that rather to something that has odd numbers. So make sure you constrain it to keep the aspect ratio, and then say something like 440. That's 161, not good. Let's do one. You know, and you may know what exactly the dimensions are that you need. So maybe you'll say, well, I need exactly 1000. And that's 379. So if that keeps going in odd numbers, what you want to do is uncheck that and just say 378. There, nobody will notice, right? And then so at that point you could go and add a few more things, like for instance a nice sunlight here with the lens flares. Add the sun, perhaps this one, somewhere out here. It could be even outside of the picture, or it could be inside. Let's go and undo this and put it right on there so you still see it. Just something that kind of jives and plays well with the way that the lighting hits the mountains as well as the balloons. Let's undo that and put it even outside, as I mentioned, something like this. Okay. Let's try a few more things. There is expand dynamic range, better contrast. What else could we use here? We could add a bit sharpness maybe, or blurriness, different gradient, there's a couple of filters on the photographic side, like soft contrast improvement. That one's way too much though. But you may find the right results with some of these, so give those a try. Also the light diffusion, if you do want a little bit more hazy around the bright spots, there's in fact a star filter also, somewhere there, star filter. If you have some very bright spots, that might give you a little bit of a bright starry appearance on those. And there's even the fog filter if you want to add a bit more fog down on the lower end, right? So the lower valleys get even more foggy. And perhaps we want to say, well, maybe that was too much, so let's undo, or do an interactive undo and find somewhere in between the middle ground, and then one more time expand dynamic range. Alright, I call this my picture is done. Finito capito. Alright, thanks for watching.